Federal agents uncovered a 1,700-foot tunnel beneath a California mansion, engineered with industrial ventilation.
At exactly 11:47 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, a federal task force commander stepped before a wall of cameras in downtown Los Angeles and said 7 words that would shatter the illusion of secured borders. "We found a tunnel we were never supposed to find." Behind him, evidence boards displayed photographs of a subterranean passage stretching nearly half a mile beneath residential neighborhoods in Southern California, reinforced with steel beams, ventilation systems, and lighting that ran on stolen municipal power. 45 federal agents had just executed the largest coordinated tunnel operation in Los Angeles County history, seizing 4,200 pounds of narcotics, over $3 million in cash, encrypted communication devices, and arrest warrants for a Somali-American couple who had turned their modest property into the western gateway of a Mexican cartel drug empire. But this was not just about 2 people. This was about a network so deeply embedded in California's logistics infrastructure that it had operated for nearly 6 years without a single red flag raised by local authorities. And what investigators would uncover in the next 72 hours would prove that this tunnel was not an anomaly. It was a prototype. The operation began in darkness. 4:32 a.m., Linwood, California. The streets were silent except for the hum of streetlights and the distant rumble of early morning freight trains. Fog rolled in from the Pacific, thick enough to hide movement. FBI tactical units, DIA strike teams, ICE enforcement divisions, and DH border interdiction specialists moved in coordinated silence across a grid of residential blocks that had been under covert surveillance for 8 months. They were not hitting one location, they were hitting 11. Simultaneously, a stash house disguised as a family daycare in Compton, a logistics hub hidden inside a halal grocery distribution center in Long Beach, a cartel-operated warehouse in Carson that federal analysts believed processed over 2 tons of narcotics per week. And at the center of it all, a single-story home on a tree-lined street in Linwood, owned by a Somali couple in their late 30s who had no criminal record, no visible wealth, and no reason to attract attention, except they had built a tunnel. At 4:34 a.m., the breach began. Flashbangs erupted in sequential bursts across the city. Doors exploded inward. SWAT teams in black tactical gear flooded through entry points with rifles raised and voices shouting federal commands in English, Spanish, and Somali. Inside the Linwood residence, agents found the husband attempting to destroy a laptop while his wife shoved bundles of cash into a garbage disposal. They were detained within 90 seconds. But the real discovery came when a K-9 unit alerted to a section of the garage floor. Agents pried up concrete slabs and found a steel hatch. Beneath it, a ladder descended into a tunnel system that should not have existed. It was not a crude dirt passage. It was engineered. Reinforced walls, industrial ventilation, lead strip lighting, a rail cart system for moving cargo, and it ran directly beneath 3 residential properties under a municipal water line and connected to a drainage easement that led to a commercial district 2 blocks from a major interstate on ramp. Inside the tunnel, agents found duffel bags stacked in rows. They contained cane bricks stamped with cartel insignias, heroin wrapped in vacuum-sealed layers, methamphetamine in crystalline form packed into military-grade containers, and fentanyl. Thousands of fentanyl pills, blue and chalky, pressed to look like prescription medication. In total, 4,200 pounds of narcotics were seized from that tunnel alone. But it was what they found in a hidden side chamber that changed everything. A server farm, 3 encrypted hard drives, and a steel lockbox containing financial ledgers, border crossing schedules, and a master operations plan labeled Project Crescent. By 9:00 a.m., FBI cyber forensics analysts were inside a federal facility in downtown Los Angeles, working against the clock to crack the encryption on the seized drives. The first firewall fell within 2 hours. What they saw on the screen was not a simple drug smuggling operation, it was a continental logistics network. The digital map displayed dozens of shell companies scattered across California, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. Fake trucking contractors, sham import-export firms, ghost charities claiming to provide refugee resettlement services, restaurant chains that existed only on paper, and at the center of the web was a name that appeared in over 200 encrypted transactions: Governor's Chief Logistics Advisor, a state-level coordinator named Marcus Galeb, a man with deep ties to international shipping lanes and a background in supply chain management who had spent the last decade quietly reshaping California's border-adjacent transportation infrastructure. Investigators traced his digital signature to authorized route changes, suspended way station inspections, and falsified cargo manifests that allowed cartel convoys to move through California like ghosts. He had created lanes, invisible corridors where trucks carrying tons of drugs could travel from the border to distribution hubs in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Sacramento without ever being stopped. The Somali couple were not the masterminds. They were operators. Galeb had recruited them 5 years earlier, offering them financial security in exchange for managing the tunnel and coordinating ground-level logistics for a Mexican cartel network inspired by Sinaloa-style trafficking operations. He had turned their property into a critical node in a system designed to funnel narcotics, cash, and human trafficking victims across the Southwest. And he had done it all while holding a position of public trust. This was not corruption. This was command-level collusion. This was not negligence. It was engineered treason. And what federal agents were about to discover was that the tunnel in Linwood was just one entry point in a network that stretched across 3 states and involved over 60 compromised officials, contractors, and law enforcement personnel. The operation had just begun. At 5:15 a.m. The following morning, a command center inside the Los Angeles FBI field office was lit up like a war room. A massive digital map covered the far wall, displaying over 70 red markers pulsing across Southern California, Arizona, and Nevada. Each marker represented a confirmed cartel asset: stash houses, tunnel exits, logistics hubs, money laundering fronts, safe houses for human trafficking victims, and properties directly linked to Marcus Galeb's financial network. The mission was clear: dismantle the entire infrastructure in a single coordinated strike. Over 1,200 federal agents were mobilized: FBI tactical units, de-enforcement divisions, ICE deportation officers, DACE border patrol specialists, SWAT teams from Los Angeles, San Diego, and Riverside counties, U.S. Marshals, ATF firearms investigators, and air support from the California National Guard, including 3 Black Hawk helicopters equipped with thermal imaging and 2 fixed-wing surveillance aircraft. This was not a raid. This was an eradication operation. At exactly 6:00 a.m., the assault began. In Riverside County, a SWAT team breached a desert warehouse that had been converted into a cartel superlab. Inside, agents found industrial mixing equipment, thousands of pounds of precursor chemicals, and over half a ton of methamphetamine in various stages of production. In San Bernardino, federal agents stormed a hilltop mansion registered to a shell corporation controlled by Galeb. They seized luxury vehicles, gold bars, and a basement vault containing over $8 million in cash bundled in plastic wrap. In Imperial County, near the border, agents discovered a second tunnel system running beneath a commercial truck depot. This one was even larger than the Linwood Tunnel, with hydraulic cart systems and ventilation powerful enough to move human cargo. 16 migrants were found inside, dehydrated and terrified, having been smuggled across the border the night before. In Long Beach, a cartel-operated logistics hub disguised as a seafood distribution center was raided. Agents found refrigerated trucks with false compartments carrying cocaine bricks hidden beneath frozen fish shipments destined for restaurants across the state. And in downtown Los Angeles, federal marshals arrested Marcus Gallup as he attempted to board a private flight to Dubai. He was taken into custody without resistance, but his encrypted phone contained messages sent just minutes earlier, warning cartel operatives to burn everything. It was too late. By noon, the network was in ruins. Over 90 suspects were in federal custody. More than 6 tons of narcotics had been seized. 47 vehicles, 12 properties, and over $20 million in assets were frozen. And the underworld took more damage in 6 hours than it had in the last 6 years. But the operation revealed something even darker. As investigators combed through the seized servers and financial records, they uncovered the depth of infiltration within law enforcement itself. Over 32 individuals working in positions of trust had been compromised. Border Patrol agents who turned off surveillance cameras during scheduled cartel crossings. Sheriff's deputies who leaked raid schedules to cartel members hours before execution. A senior logistics planner in the state transportation department who had quietly rerouted highway patrols away from key smuggling corridors. A county judge who had dismissed trafficking charges against cartel operatives in exchange for offshore payments. And most disturbingly, a deputy chief within the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department who had provided Gallup with real-time intelligence on federal investigations. These were not isolated cases. This was systemic. One honest DIA supervisor, a 23-year veteran named Agent Ramirez, stood in the evidence room staring at arrest photos of officers he had worked alongside for years. He told investigators, "I thought I knew who wore the badge. I was wrong. They built a second department inside ours, and we never saw it." Federal prosecutors moved quickly. Internal affairs divisions launched parallel investigations. Agents who had been on Gallup's payroll were arrested in their homes, at their desks, and in some cases while on patrol. The message was clear: the badge would be rebuilt, the system would be purged, and there would be no sanctuary for those who had traded their oath for cartel money. But the true scale of the network only became visible when analysts zoomed out. This was not just a California problem. It was continental. The map showed smuggling routes that extended across the entire Southwest, convoys leaving the border in Imperial County, traveling north through California on predetermined routes, then branching east into Nevada, Arizona, and Utah. Shipping lanes that moved narcotics hidden in agricultural produce from California ports to distribution hubs in Denver, Seattle, and Chicago. Fake logistics companies that contracted with state governments to provide transportation services using public funding to move cartel cargo under the cover of legitimate freight. Gallup had exploited federal green energy grants to fund a fleet of electric trucks that were never inspected because they were classified as environmentally progressive infrastructure. He had used refugee resettlement programs as cover to move human trafficking victims across state lines, disguising them as migrants receiving federal assistance. And he had weaponized the bureaucracy itself, burying his network in layers of paperwork, shell companies, and false compliance reports that made oversight nearly impossible. Federal analysts estimated that at its peak, Gallup's network was moving over 14 tons of narcotics per month across the United States, generating over $60 million in monthly revenue for the Mexican cartel he served. But the final file found on his encrypted server revealed something even more chilling. It was titled Phase 3, Permanence. The document outlined a long-term strategy to turn Southern California into a permanent cartel stronghold. It described plans to install additional operatives in governor's offices, state legislatures, and federal border agencies. It detailed a vision for creating a shadow government that could protect cartel operations for decades, shielded by legitimate political power and immune to traditional law enforcement. This was not infiltration. This was colonization. And if federal agents had arrived even 6 months later, it might have been too late to stop it. Now let me tell you what this really means. Power does not always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it wears a suit, signs contracts, and smiles at press conferences while building empires in the shadows. The Somali couple in Linwood were not masterminds. They were tools. Marcus Galeb was not an anomaly. He was a blueprint. And the network he built was not defeated because it was weak. It was defeated because 45 federal agents refused to look away when the evidence pointed toward people in power. But here is the part that should terrify you. For every network that gets exposed, how many are still running? For every corrupt official who gets arrested, how many are still signing approvals, rerouting patrols, and protecting shipments? This story is not just about one tunnel in California. It is about a system that allowed that tunnel to exist for 6 years. It is about a logistics coordinator who turned public infrastructure into cartel highways. It is about law enforcement officers who sold their badge to the highest bidder. And it is about the 4,200 pounds of narcotics that were destined for American streets, American neighborhoods, and American families. Every pound of cocaine, every fentanyl pill, every gram of heroin represents lives destroyed. Overdoses, addictions, families shattered, communities hollowed out. And the people who built this network knew that. They just did not care. Because for them, this was business. For the rest of us, it was a slow-motion disaster. If you are still watching this, you understand how deep this goes. Tap like so more people see this story. Share it so it reaches beyond the algorithm. Comment expose if you want corruption like this dragged into the light. Because silence is how networks like this survive. They count on you not paying attention. They count on you assuming someone else is watching. But the truth is, exposure is the only weapon that works when power hides behind legitimacy. Federal prosecutors are still building cases against dozens of individuals connected to this network. The Somali couple faces life sentences for drug trafficking, conspiracy, and operating a criminal enterprise. Marcus Galeb is being held without bail, charged with racketeering, conspiracy to traffic narcotics, bribery of public officials, and treason-adjacent offenses that legal experts say could result in multiple life sentences. The tunnel in Linwood has been filled with concrete, the properties have been seized, the shell companies have been dissolved, and the routes have been shut down. But the question remains, how many others are still out there? How many tunnels are still running beneath our feet? How many officials are still signing off on shipments? How many badges are still for sale? This story is a warning. It is a reminder that organized crime does not need to overthrow governments when it can simply buy them, one contract at a time, one promotion at a time, one encrypted transaction at a time. And it is a call to remember that the fight against corruption is not won in one raid. It is won every single day by agents who refuse to be bought, by journalists who refuse to stay quiet, and by citizens who refuse to look away. Power needs silence to survive. So do not give it that luxury.